Welcome to episode 126 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Franco-British pianist and composer RIOPY about his new album, Thrive. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to former Kasabian frontman Tom Main about his first solo album, The Reckoning. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. Before we begin, here's Daniel Lynch with what's been happening on XS Noize this week.
In the review section, Laurie Gava has been listening to the new album from City and Colour. The Love Still Held Me Near is a 12-song tribute to the best friend of frontman Dallas Green. Laurie says Green's honest lyrics and the band's sonic progression makes for a noteworthy album. Standout track is The Things We Choose to Care About. Sinking Ships is the new album from Alberta Cross. Stuart Evans gives it top marks with expansive production and a standout cover of a Sharon Von Etten track. There's gig news this week from Busted, who will play a 20th anniversary tour, and Morrissey, who will be around the UK and Ireland in July. There's new music from The K's, Therapy, and a new video for Hozier's Eat Your Young, the title track of his EP released last month. Stay up to date at xsnoize.com.
Thrive is a new chapter for pianist and composer RIOPY, and his first album to include strings. Thrive takes inspiration from classical masterworks. In this interview, RIOPY talks about writing and recording the album, Lana Del Rey using his music on a new song, live shows, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with RIOPY. Hi RIOPY, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Hi,
it's great to have you. Where are you today?
So right now, just arrived in Paris.
So let's go. I always go back to the start. Can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
Whoa. I don't know if there was like one artist that made me, pay attention to music, because I had that's the tricky question, because the kind of upbringing I had didn't really allow me to have access to music. So I was introduced to music by basically just having a piano around and just playing around and being so attracted and fascinated by sound, more as a necessity rather than a passion. So music, came much late. Music listening, let's say, came much later in life. The first album I ever bought I was just 18, and it was Parachutes from Coldplay.
So what age were you when you first discovered the piano?
So I was in the middle of nowhere, and I was around 2 years old. I don't remember, visually, because I guess at 2 you don't remember much of stuff. But I always remember this. It's almost like a drop of water, just exploding, and that's what I remember of the first time I hit, a note on some keys, and that stayed with me forever until now. I still have the same feeling every time I go, on a piano, and just hitting a key makes me feel something that is outside of this world. And yeah.
So the first time you pressed on keys, did you just feel that connection straight away? You as if it was sort of part of you and something that you were going to do going forward?
Yeah, 200%, like 200%. And later I was already 5, 6, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. That's it. I always knew that I wanted to do that. Yeah.
So it came really natural. When did you realize that you were really good at playing the piano? Did someone tell you, or did you know?
Well, you know what? It's funny, because I always thought I was shit. I always thought I was, a big fraud, and it's funny because I was lucky that every time I had people telling me, "Oh my God, that's great," blah 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 blah, but I never believed it. And the way I grew up, I would still not believe it, So and today it's funny when people say, "Oh, but you're this, you're that, you're successful." Like I'm like, don't really believe it. I'm just, it's funny. I feel more like a hunter. I mean, hunter is not the right word, but I guess a bit like I don't know, like an adventurer, right? I'm looking for this frequency. I'm looking for this like magical, really unique thing that can transport me, out, to another place. That's what I'm really looking for, to pure beauty.
Mm. What was the first music you were able to play really skillfully?
I mean, I'm self-taught, right? So I never played like classical or pop or whatever. I just played what I was hearing in my head, and then I was trying to ideas coming, to my head, trying to transcript and transpose and translate in, on the piano. So, I would see those two notes, okay, and then I would go a bit quicker and faster slowly. And when I couldn't do that, right, I was basically, all right, I do it today and I do it the next day. And then in a few days, I would realize, oh, wow, actually, I couldn't do it the first day, but a week later I can. So if I just repeat, things like this, then I can, get a better technique. And then I wanted to use the whole keyboard as well. So I started, making my own little patterns, right? Like of rhythm and melodies, and step by step growing, so using two brains, right? I mean, kind of creativity to create something, and then the technique, because without the technique, you can't do anything.
And you're from France, and you were given the opportunity to study music at the Oxford Brookes University. So how did you go from France to England?
By train.
Why did you decide to go there?
No, I'm kidding. Well, it's, England was the country I said to myself I would never go, because it's a gray and it rains all the time. And of course I ended up there, and I spent nearly 20 years, right? I've got a British passport, and today, if you ask me, I mean, all right, I still have a weird accent, but I feel more, citizen of the world, or actually British than French, because I spent my entire adulthood, right? So I was 20 years old, roughly, and I moved to the UK, because France was a no-go place. It was too narrow-minded, regarding music. I mean, France is a great country, but, if you say you do music, people are like, but what's your real job? I'm like, well, that's my real job. So I went to London and then tried to find, job, and that's it, right? I mean, really trying to, I mean, I was surviving. It was incredibly tough. Every time I talk about it, of course, it puts you back 20 years, backwards, and you're like, oh, wow, I don't want to go back there. It was too difficult, and, a lot of misery. But anyway, so I ended up going to Reading, and then for some reason I found a job in a music shop. And then from there, there was this guy, this man, actually, this beautiful man called Michael Freeman, which is really funny. And he helped me. He was like, you should go to Oxford, and, you should go to Brookes, because it's contemporary music, right? I mean, Oxford University is not going to work for you, because you don't have any background in classical music, and that's all they do. So don't even, if you want, it's not going to be neither fun, and you won't even get it. And so I didn't know at the time, what universities and stuff, and I just wanted to do my music, right? But he said to me, yeah, but you can get a scholarship, and then instead of working in a music shop, you play music all day, right? You make music, you meet people, and like you, it's a very cultural city. And I was like, all right, great, sounds. So I had an unconditional offer in 2006, and then I did 3 years there, and I started to drink, because so I've got a bachelor in drinking, heavily drink, the UK way, because for a Frenchman it was wow, you guys, yeah. So no, I started in the UK, and I also stopped actually in the UK, by the way. And there, I was making my music, and I just was doing my thing. Now, did university teach me anything? All right. I think university is a great thing for many people, but with the personality I have and stuff, I didn't really find it, like it was really compelling. It wasn't really something that I felt more, it was really hard, and I had so many problems as well. But the people were great, and I loved, and I still love the mentality of the British towards education, university. It's very open. And that's very, very cool. But for me, I just wanted to make my music, It wasn't my dream to go and, But it was a step. I mean, it took 20 years anyway, right, to get, where I thought I would get. So, yeah, life is short.
Well, you must have been good enough, because you were asked to perform at a party where you met Coldplay's Chris Martin. So what was that like, performing in front of someone like Chris Martin, who you just mentioned at the start? Your first album you bought was Coldplay Parachutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's funny because I didn't really know much people, or like, let's say, celebrities or blah blah blah, but I knew Coldplay because I don't even remember how I heard, the first time, but it was very beautiful, like absolutely beautiful. And I'll never forget that day when I was, just by myself, because I had no family, no friends, nobody. I was just like and I had the I was on the street in Paris before going to London, to the UK, and I was just crying on Christmas Day with, like, it was snowing, and it was such a cliche that I would make fun of myself, but I was such in pain. And I was listening, to that album, like on a loop, it was just like, extremely. So 10 years later, to be invited to a party, and indeed, I was invited to play the piano, to play a piece of music. And he was there, and I didn't even know he was there. But when it was, when the host was like, ding, 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 we've got a special guest tonight, it's going to play a piece of piano. And I stood up and I saw Chris at the table with Gwyneth Paltrow. And I was like, oh God, like I was a bit, intimidated. And I went to the piano, did my thing. And yeah, I was lucky, really liked it. And he wanted to help. And basically my manager made a joke, he said, oh, you could do with the piano. And a few weeks later, I had a piano on which I recorded my album, RIOPY.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And have you been in touch with Chris since? And did he like the album? Did he know that you wrote the album on that piano that he bought?
No, no. He was very, very kind. Every time, I want to go to see them live, I always have, they always give me, a place and stuff. He's been very good. But then after, of course, I think it's very hard when you are at this level like this, because, and it's very hard for me as well, to be very honest with you, because it's not the same industry, and him, it's like he gets, I guess, solicited all the time by everybody, right? And even though I have no interest in, using him or whatever, but it's an industry. And I think sometimes people, when they're so big, they just, so I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to go and be like, I'm not like that. And so it's, yeah. Did that make sense? Or?
Yeah, I understand,
But you know what I mean? It's never easy. That's why I'm not, maybe I'm too French on that, or I don't know, or maybe just too, I don't know. But even, on that day, when I finished playing, and he asked me to come, and we chatted for a few minutes, and then he was like, oh, did you want to stay with us another table? And I it's not that I didn't want to, but I felt too, I didn't want to intrude. I didn't want to, didn't want to be, it's, I didn't want to sound like an opportunist, basically. And I still don't want to sound like an opportunist, because it's not me. And to be honest with you, I already have a lot of people, in my team asking, oh, we need Chris. I'm like, no, we don't. He's been super kind, and he did something amazing. That's beautiful. And I don't want him to think that I'm trying to take advantage of his fame or anything, because I am not like this. That's not me. Yeah.
Well, you don't really need to now, because you're about to release your fourth album, Thrive. It's a fantastic album. You say it represents the inner strength that pushes us to fight in moments of doubt and sorrow. Yeah,
for sure. Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it's that's what Thrive is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah, you push it. It's funny because sometimes when you look at the definition of thrive, it only has this positive or, looking forward. It's not really that. It is exactly what you said. It's you push and you really go for it with all your issues, your flaws, your weaknesses, the sorrows, which is, I think, a very beautiful word. It's all of this that makes us, thrive. And there is only one way, I think, for me in life is, in life, and you go. Don't see yourself as a victim. And for me, all of this is transcribed, within the music. And actually the piece Thrive, right, which is borrowed by, the composers, the classical composers. So in this instance, Beethoven, I think, you can really feel it, and it's different rhythm. It's almost like we're starting, a kind of, like a rhythm and something like Tetris. Tetris, the little game.
Yes,
like
yes, I do indeed.
Yes.
Well, as you did mention, on the album, you expand on classical music of famous composers with your own interpretations. So when did you decide to do this? When did you get the idea?
So I did, my 3 albums, piano solo, and that's me. That's very, very much me. But I felt, okay, I want to expand and try something new. I thought it was time, the end of a trilogy and a new chapter. And I'm actually, I'm not a very loud person, in the sense that I just love to do what I do, but I'm not trying to. So in my spare time, right? I mean, I make music as a whole, right? And nobody really knows that. And I didn't show it because I don't know, I don't really care anyway, but I'm doing all these things. And I was like, okay, I want this time. When I was listening to, when you walk on the street sometime, like you're in a shop or you're in a mall or wherever, and then you hear music, because there is music everywhere. And the gymnopédie, those 2 chords from Satie that everybody knows, down, 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 down. Yeah, that's not very, very well tuned voice, but so these 2 chords always, every time, they get to me. They really get. It's so beautiful and wow. And I was hearing stuff. I was hearing, oh, we can go there. Like the flow of creative was just, like bouncing and I started writing on that. I was like, I just felt like it. But I was going a totally different direction than what the album ended up being, because I guess that's how it worked. That's why I love making music, because it's always unknown. You never know what you're going to find, right? You never know. But sometimes just at some point something happens for you, wow, and it's really magic. So I started doing that, and that's how I made, Costa de Caparica, with all these strings and this kind of rhythm, and then using those 2 chords, in the back, to as a little wink, right? So it started like this, yeah.
And you mentioned strings. It's Thrive is the first of your albums to include strings alongside your beautiful piano playing. So why did you decide 4 albums in to use strings on your album?
Well, because, I mean, I don't know if you know that, but like I've always been a pianist. I've always done it. I've always been playing, but of course, when you're not, in the classical area or the pop area, you're a bit in limbo. And I was always in limbo, like, not really knowing. They didn't really know. Nobody knew you. Where do you put, people like me, right? Now I think it's a bit different, but it was really difficult. And for me, all I loved was making music, right? So I did, I've always, I'm a composer and a producer, right? So I produce my own stuff and I compose my own stuff, and I've worked in advertising before. I've done like, some trailers and a lot of stuff like this, where I was doing already a lot of work with, with orchestras and strings and, and a lot of instruments, right? But I never did it as a, like, let's say, commercial album. I hate the word, but, an album for me as an artist, right? And that's why I wanted to take all the skills and everything I learned, in my life as a musician, and just, make something different and get all this, sound and yeah, basically achieve something, that would make it go somewhere else, right? And again, another route, another, still staying true to what I do and create.
So when you're commissioned to write music for adverts, TV shows, or movies, do you approach the writing process completely differently from when you're doing your own work for your own album?
Of course. Well, now, I mean, I haven't done it in a few years because I mean, I'm touring a lot and of course, recording a lot. And so I don't really do that anymore. But the latest I did was a few years ago for Peugeot. Because it was, I mean, let's be honest, sometimes you have a project where we are music, and sometimes to be able to do something you love, you have to compromise, right? It's and I mean, again, I'm not I had to compromise. So the compromise, for example, for Peugeot, which is a car brand, right? It was, they were like, oh, we want you to be in the advert and making a score as if the car was going to drive on a score, on a physical score. I thought that was great. And of course, the first thing, I was like, oh, yeah, but I don't want to do it because I don't want to sell myself like selling cars. And at the same time, the project was really exciting because I had to think about, okay, how can we make a car with sensors, on the pavement? Because we did, right? We put sensors, and actually it was easy. Do you know why? Because I used the kilometer per hour or miles, per hour as the BPM. As simple as that. So we've got like 60 BPM. That was all right. You just and it was great. I really loved, doing that because it was fun. So that's great when you have indeed brands who can, help you make something really creative, because otherwise you cannot do it, right? I mean, I don't have the money to do something like this, and so that's where it's you compromise sometimes, when you do to expand your creativity.
Well, Thrive it's a stunning piece of work. It really relaxes me when I put it on. What piece do you enjoy playing the most on the album?
Oh, that is like if you ask me which kid I like to hug more. And when I do hug one more, I feel guilty and I go to the other one. So now I try and take them both. It's a tricky one. I mean, I really love. I say. It's a tricky one because I really enjoy playing them all, but it depends also obviously on the mood, So piano allegretto is really, really fun to play. Piano allegretto is actually for me, it's a funny one to play because I have a few on each album that I've made over the years. I always have one piece that comes from the end of the recording, right? So I have, I come into the studio or even at home as I did, RIOPY. And then when I'm finished, I'm just freestyling on the piano and boom, there is one that just stands out and we record it. It's really funny because on the Tree of Light album, it was Flow, which, you might have heard, what happened, mm-hmm. To that track. And on this one, on Thrive, it was piano allegretto. I was playing it in the studio in North London. We actually had the Rag and Bone next door recording as well, which was funny. Very nice man, by the way. And I'm playing those chords. I'm playing, the melody, and it doesn't make sense to me. There is something I'm like, I don't understand it. I couldn't intellectually understand what was going on. And I play it. And then I've got, my producer's like, I just record, just do it again. I'm like, yes, just let me, leave me in my, zone. And I'm in the zone. And then I couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, what is it with this piece? I cannot intellectualize it. I cannot understand it. It was really, really weird. And this was for weeks. I was playing it every day. And then suddenly I was like, you know what? Just stop it. Just do the left hand and count. And I started to count as that. And it was like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was like, I didn't understand it because I was changing, subconsciously the rhythms, in between. So we've got ta 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's like, so it would change all the time basically, and that's why my mind, my intellect wouldn't understand it. Took me weeks to understand this piece. Yeah. It's a bit weird. I know it's a bit weird.
And how did you feel when you got there?
I was like, oh yes, yes, because when you don't understand something at some point, you feel a bit stupid, And I was like, I can't, yeah. And the problem is, if I do not understand it, then I don't feel that I can really, fully go there, right? Because of course you've got the flow of creativity. That's one thing, but then I need my intellect to help me put it, I'm there in the technique, and I wouldn't understand what was going on. So it was it was really interesting.
When you're in the studio and you're recording on the piano, is it hard to record a piano, to get the right tone that you want?
Yeah, it's super hard. It's super hard because it depends on, the piano, the tuning, the room, the everything. And of course me as well. And especially when I do, because I have one instrument, right, most of the time, right? And then if you come to my gig, you'll see it's a bit different, but still, it's one instrument. So that instrument really needs to be, as we make one, right? We are one when we play, and it needs to be able to follow everything I want him to do, right? And vice versa. So it's already to play, it's super hard because I need to have the right everything. And people might think, oh yeah, but a piano is a piano. No, it's really not. And it's funny because I had this my touring, promoter. So we've got someone coming with us, right? In the UK was Stephen, and at the beginning he was like, yeah, it's a piano, first day, and then the second night, third night, he was like, oh, I can hear the difference. And I was like, of course, because you're opening now your mind to something you didn't know, right? Because he's doing most pop and stuff, so he never did piano solo, and I think this is with everything, right? When we start looking at something, then it becomes different. It's like a grain. If you look at the forest for like 10 minutes or 3 hours, you will see after 3 hours that the grains, you've got thousands of grains in that forest. And at first sight, you're just like, yeah, it's just one grain. It's just trees, right? Yeah. So the recording, it's even one step further than that because we really need all the pieces to be together, and one note can just screw the whole thing, because you cannot fake an emotion. And that's why people think, oh, everybody can play the piano. I'm like, yes, everybody can play the piano, but an emotion to really get the right thing, again, for me, it's like a drop of water, and that one, we need all the conditions for that. And do I get it every time? Of course not, and that's why I do it again and again. And sometimes it's really hard for me because sometimes I'm just, somewhere, on the planet playing the piano, and I hear something, bam, and I don't have the means to record it straight away, right? So it hurts, because then I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to reproduce something like this.
Your previous albums have accumulated 600 million streams worldwide and achieved significant chart success, with more than 120 weeks for Trading Light in the US Billboard's classical charts. So how does that make you feel, having all that success?
I really honestly don't want to look too much into it. I'm like, okay, this is great, I'm flattered, but I don't want to. Why? Because I want to carry on making music, and be the man I am. I don't want, and I heard so many stories. Also, I'm 39, I'm not 20 years old. I've been struggling so much in my life. So, I don't want to think, oh, I have arrived, like many people do. I think for me, you never arrive. And I'm very aware that, I'm very grateful, very lucky, but I don't want, look into it, because you always, there is always, it's life, you know what I mean? If you look into the thing, into the material like this too much, I think you get very, very depressed, and I don't want to go back there, because I have a history with, my anxiety, depression, and I was suicidal when I was younger. I don't want to go back there. So I don't want success or anything to come into it. And it's not the right way. The best way for me is to have the lifestyle I have, which is, I actually, well, it's just me, but I meditate twice a day. I do my yoga. I don't drink. I spend time with my kids, and if I'm not on tour, doing promo or something, and try to have a very simple life, which makes me very, very happy.
Meditation is something I've looked into before. I actually bought a book to meditate, like a beginner's guide to meditation. Do you think it's worthwhile? Is it something that you must do, and do you feel better for meditating and bringing it into your daily lifestyle?
Oh, I don't like the word meditating, because I think it's been overused, and it's been a bit like, dirty a bit, but yes, I do. And I love it. I absolutely love it. But I would say it's a bit like the bagpipe. I bought a bagpipe, and to start and rehearse on it, it's not easy at the beginning. And I think it's very easy to get like, whoa, it's too hard, I just move on. And we are in a society where everything is so easy, so just here at your fingertip, that you don't really push, you don't really get a challenge. But trust me, like when you really start, doing a little bit of discipline, a bit every day, then step by step, that's very often the learning process. It doesn't move, and then one day, it really changes. it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. This peace you get, and he helps, with everything, right? With your body and the where you are, and for me also my intuition, my creativity, right? Because when you meditate, you get back, I think, the mind and the body in its initial place. So you've got two ways, I would say, the passive meditation or the active meditation. The passive, through the breathing or the mantra that I'm sure is written in your book, and the active, trying to do something with it. So to focus on visualizing, for example, which I think is super efficient, and people do it already without realizing it, and of course then you've got lucid dreams, which is absolutely extraordinary. I don't know if you've had a lucid dream once, but it's you've had a lucid dream? Well, you probably have.
I'm sure. I don't know. I wouldn't realize it. I sort of, when I run a lot, I sort of go into a trance when I'm running, I find. And people say sometimes that's a bit like meditating. But about the book that I mentioned, I think I've only read about 3 pages so far. So it's something that I want to try. That's why I ask.
Yeah. But that's great. I mean, it's great, but don't if I can give just an advice, but it's just me. I mean, personally, right? Because it's all about sharing, isn't it? I would say don't push it, but do it slowly, because a lot of people I've met through the years, they're like, oh, I want to do it, and then they do full scale, and then they get discouraged, which is normal. It's a bit like fasting, right? I fast a lot. If somebody's like, oh yeah, no, I just want to do it, and he goes full just like this, it's not going to work, and it's better to go slowly, steady. It's I mean, for me, right, it really is the best way. And also sounds, right? I mean, of course, you love music, to use sounds, to meditate. I mean, I've made one called Meditation 22, which is very, I think, I made it exactly for that purpose. It works pretty well, but also, I don't know, nature, right? I mean, you go in nature is amazing. Just sitting, next to a lake and just looking at the dirt or something without doing anything, right? No phones, nothing. Just doing that is in itself already a kind of, meditation.
I must take your advice and try that. Definitely.
Right. See how it goes.
Yeah. I'll see how it goes. Thank you. Lana Del Rey recently announced that she has adapted one of your compositions for a track on her next album. Did you know there's a tunnel under Ocean Boulevard? Now, when announcing the new album, she thanked you. She said, "Thank you for lending me your subtle piano compositions that are infused with melodies I wish I could only dream up." So how did you feel when you heard that she was going to use your music in one of her songs?
So that was interesting because all right, Lana Del Rey is one of the few, I would say, artists that I have a lot of respect for. Because she doesn't compromise, she does her thing, she doesn't really care, and I think that's really amazing. And the music is there, right? I mean, it's a lot of strings, it's a lot, right? So for me, of course, it talks to me. First, when I heard, I mean, I was a bit worried because that's my music, right? So it's two things. I have a lot of respect for her, but my music is my music, right? And a little, apprehension. And when I heard the track, I was moved. I was like, wow, it's very beautiful what you did. It's very Lana Del Rey with a little twist, maybe. She did something very beautiful. I think I really like it. I think it's a beautiful song. So cannot wait for people to listen to this. But it's never easy, right? When you make your own thing and then somebody comes. But at the same time, when I heard this, and I was like, but who else would have dreamt, of, doing something either on my music or something? And I was like, I don't really know, because it's not really what I do, right? So I'm very, very pleased and honored that, that collab is Lana Del Rey for sure.
And what piece of music was it she used?
So that's the thing. It is my piece called Flow. And Flow is the piece that I composed at Real World Studios at the end of the recording. It's fun, isn't it? Yeah. So it's very interesting.
It would be amazing if you could perform the song with her sometime.
Well, for sure, if you see her, say hi. um, no, I mean, you know what? I don't know. You never know. Yeah, it might. But as I said to you, of course, my team, but I'm not an opportunist. Listen, if she wants to do it, then that's how, she's much, much bigger artist. She's a very, very famous, blah, blah, blah. It's a business, people. So I don't want to be the one trying to, I don't care, Or, I think creatively speaking, for sure, I love what she does. And I think she's very talented. I love her voice, and I think her lyrics, it's a story in itself. But I'm not going to, chase anyone. Just, you know what I mean? It's because I don't want to send the wrong message. It's not me. It's not what I do.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not an easy one, right? With everything. Because when you make music, you want to make music. But at the same time, it's, when you're Lana Del Rey or Chris Martin, you have so many people just around you trying to, and yeah, I don't want to sound like this. No, it's already, very, very beautiful and very, humbling to have, this.
You recently became an official ambassador for the charity organisation Restorative Music UK. So what do they do? What can you tell me about this charity?
Restore the Music is a charity that basically helps kids, underprivileged kids, right, to get access to music. So I think for me, it's when they approached me, I was like, yeah, of course, because I was, an underprivileged kid, and I was, so I can really, of course, I can empathize and I want to help if I can, right? And I think we should all, help as musicians to help, the next generation making music. And playing an instrument is what music is for me, right? Don't get me wrong. I think DJs and stuff is cool, but playing an actual instrument with your hands or your mouth, or I mean, you always use your hands anyway, but it's something beyond, it's very special. It's what humans do, right? And I think nowadays we have technology is great. I love technology. It enables me to be able, to go faster and quicker in like the workflow, even producing, and that's great. But we shouldn't forget that us as humans, we do things differently. So we need to use that technology, And I'm a bit worried sometimes when I just see kids on the computer making music all day. I'm like, try an instrument, and I see all these kids now more and more, even sending me emails and stuff. Oh, I'm learning the piano because of you, blah, blah, blah. And I love that. I absolutely love that. So Restore the Music, I went to one of the schools, that they work with. And yeah, talking to the kids and I met some very talented kids, right? Just making music. And I think that's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Just a few more, RIOPY. I like to ask my guests the following questions. If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be?
Oh, well, I don't know. That's not an easy one because relive like
if you could go back and relive a moment that you really enjoyed in your musical career, or if you could go back and relive something that you could maybe change something in your musical career.
No, I wouldn't change anything because I'm not somebody who looks, in the past and have regrets. So I wouldn't change anything, even though it wasn't perfect, like far from it. but I think, for me, like I see life as, of course we do mistakes and I still do mistakes, but I learn from them. I really try and learn every time for something I do, with my kids, with my career, with people around me, with everything, musically, everything for me is one, right? I try and be better. I try and be better every day. So that's why I can't, because if I went back in time and changed one thing, then it would change everything, right? Like a domino effect. It's maybe a parallel life.
For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. What song or album or piece of music, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
That's a very good question. Sorry, it was very slow to reply, but I got a bit freeze right there because I realized that I don't really have this connection of memories with music that much. And then I went, you see, in this 1 second And then I went into movies, and it's the same for me in movies. When I watch a movie, which is quite rare, but my wife says I have a fish memory because I don't remember movies at all. I watch something and I just forget straight away about it, and the next day I'm like, I don't even know what we watched. And so I think it's the same with music. I don't really have, because I mean, I didn't grow up with music. Maybe that's why as well, So I didn't bring memories from childhood doing that. And then when I was an adult, maybe it was too late, because I didn't learn that process. I don't know. And I find it a bit sad right now. I got a little bit of sadness, feeling. Yeah.
Sorry for making you feel sad.
No, it's good to feel sad. I think it's, just I'm aware of my emotions. It helps me cope with life better.
And do you collect music? Do you have music at home? Do you collect albums? Do you collect vinyl?
No.
No?
No, because it's not part of my upbringing, but I think I will now a bit more because of my kids. Because my daughter is 3, she's 4.5, and she loves Lana Del Rey.
Is that did she love Lana Del Rey before you were involved in the song, or? Yeah. Wow,
that's really cool, right? Because she's 4.5. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And her favorite song is "Young and Beautiful."
Wow.
She loved that song. So when she found out, I don't think she realizes yet, to be honest, because she's 4 years old, right? She doesn't realize, but it's really funny, Yeah, she doesn't know, I mean, even for them to understand what I'm doing was a bit tough, right? Until they came to a gig, it was like, all these people, they came for you. I'm like, yes.
Just last one. What are you most grateful for about being able to do what you do every day?
Life. Really life. I don't believe in one God. I'm not religious because of everything that happened to me, but I know there is something more. And this something is, for me, the more you give, the more you give in, the more you give up, the more, when I say give up, is the more you let go and you just try and be the best person you can, and of service to others and help people and be kind and be compassionate and be, I think life gives it back to you. I really, really, really believe that. And that's what I'm grateful for, because, with the whole life I've had, and thank you for not even going there. I didn't have it easy, and I always stayed, true to myself. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Just be good, and you do your life, you do your music, and it's going to be okay. And today I am okay. And that's why I don't want to look too much into, success or whatever. I'm okay. I'm alive, and I'm trying now to, to share even more. That's it. Life is beautiful.
So, RIOPY, is there anything you would like to mention before we wrap up? Anything else coming forward? What's happening next?
Wow. Well, I'm touring. I'm touring a lot. Coming back to London at the end, around October, I think, for the London Jazz Festival. The new album is coming. Going to the US as well, touring and just making music. So yeah, it's really exciting, and very glad it's happening.
Well, thanks very much for taking the time to do this. Really, really appreciate it. Really enjoyed talking to you. And I really enjoyed the album. So again, wish you all the success with it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.